Church representative is the Reverend Harriet Johnson. Harriet is the priest in charge at the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in Kilmarnock. Welcome, Harriet. Good to see you. And also Norman Watt, many of you will know, is our teacher representative. Norman is a teacher at Stuart Academy, and welcome to you both. Harriet's here.
She's go up there.
I was looking at God, Harriet.
Looking for divine inspiration.
Spiritual guidance. But welcome anyway, it's nice to see you. I now ask Christine to call for the sediment and intimate apologies.
Thanks, Chair. So we have Councillor Douglas Reid.
Here.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Here.
Councillor John McFadden.
Here.
Councillor Elaine Cowan. Councillor Maureen Mackay.
Present, Christine.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Linton. No, not yet. Councillor Graham Barton.
Here.
And I have an apology from Councillor Barry Douglas. Councillor Neil Ingram.
Here.
Councillor Claire Maitland.
Yeah.
Councillor Drew Filson. And then we have Harriet Johnston. Babs Mowat. See Babs there. Alan Vint.
Yep, here, thanks.
And Jackie Livingston. Jackie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks, Jackie. And Norman Watt.
Yes, here, thanks.
Thanks, Norman. And Councillor Linton, I note that you're on the call now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, that's the sediment and apologies taken. Now, do we have any declarations of interest? I don't think there's anything obvious, Christine. No. Okay, and now we'll go to item 2E, which is the public consultation on the educational provision for North West Kilmarnock. And to take us through the report is Linda McCauley-Griffiths. Linda.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Pleasure to be here this morning, presenting on the report for the consultation on the educational provision in the North West of Kilmarnock. Clearly, colleagues, this is an ongoing paper. There's a history to this, and there's hopefully a future to this paper. But just to contextualise where we're coming from, this paper is being presented to give you the findings of the consultation exercise that was undertaken following the previous report to Cabinet seeking permission to undertake said consultation. So, colleagues, it is clearly a long report, but to start at the back of the report and give you an idea of the appendices, Appendix 1 covers the entire consultation report. Clearly, I'm just going through the covering report today, but that gives you the entire report in its fullest of detail. Appendix 1A is the actual proposal documentation that was used to undertake the consultation itself. Appendices 2, 3 and 4 cover each of the virtual meetings that were held as part of the consultation process. And Appendix 5, colleagues, gives the Education Scotland perspective on each of the proposals in turn. So just referring you to those through the report, colleagues, if I may. So clearly, paragraph 1 covers the key purpose of this paper, which is really just to bring you the results of the consultation and indeed, colleagues, to seek your permission to go ahead to the next stage of this process, which we would be to submit and bring to you a copy of the LEIP Phase 3 bid in remit of the proposals contained. So a quick recap on the 4 proposals that were consulted upon, colleagues. That was the creation of a Willowbank Primary School on the Onthank campus, the creation of an early years transition facility for young people at Willowbank, the establishment of a supported learning centre in Onthank Primary School, and that's a redesignation from a pile of an inclusion hub there, which has gone incredibly successfully, as you heard in the previous paper. And also, colleagues, the utilisation of the extra space in Mount Carmel Primary School to create extra space for early years. Colleagues, in paragraph 2, where a bid to be submitted and accepted, clearly proposals on timelines would be that August 23 would see the incorporation of a supported learning centre at Onthank, with that only requiring minor modification, and August 27 would be the proposed date for the opening of the new integrated campus. Colleagues, in recommendations, the first 4 recommendations are indeed the proposals that I've already set out. And in the further recommendations in 5, clearly Cabinet decision would be implemented before call-in to comply with timescales. We are in a unique position in that if a bid is approved to go forward, it does require to be submitted by the end of this month. So there are some specialist conditions attached to this particular report today. Colleagues, I would be asking you in recommendation to remit to myself to submit to Scottish Government ministers around about the creation of a new Willowbank Primary School. That would have to be undertaken to comply with timescales by the 11th of October. Colleagues, in 7, clearly the main thrust of today's report is to consider us being permitted to bring a LEIP Phase 3, so that's the Learning Estate Investment Programme, bid Phase 3 funding. 8 would be to agree to the next phase of consultation that would be required in that space, and clearly, colleagues, as always, to note the content of this report. Colleagues, in paragraph 4, we split the proposals into 2. 1 and 3 in legality were always statutory consultation, and that's clearly around about the creation of a Willowbank Primary School and the creation of a supported learning centre. So both of them would always require statutory consultation. 2 and 4 were non-statutory in those eyes, and that's around about an early years transition facility and also the creation of further early years space. So, colleagues, those are remitted to us in regards to 1140 in terms of that completion, but also the expansion to 1 and 2-year-olds there. So, colleagues, just to summarise that one, 5 to 9 then covers the statutory consultation phase. The details are included in the 2 appendices that I've referred to. Those are 1 and 1A. That consultation, as you will see, ran until June. Clearly, the young people were also consulted in that space, and we made special arrangements to consult with the young people at Willowbank School, colleagues. Public meetings were also held, and you'll see those in appendices 2, 3 and 4. And there was then a publication of the public response to the consultation that ran from the 26th of August for the statutory period of 3 weeks, and there was no further response gained in that time. 10 through 12, colleagues, cover the public response. So clearly the multitude of ways that the public could respond to this particular consultation were through the meetings, attendance, written responses, and clearly Education Scotland. And for us, actually, they attended each of the virtual meetings. So Education Scotland have been present through the entire process, which I would have to acknowledge my thanks for, and in attendance clearly at all of the meetings that you see minuted in front of you. Paragraph 13 covers that Education Scotland response, and clearly each of these has also been responded to by us. So what we see in this report, colleagues, is what did people say and what did we say in response to each of those in turn to make sure everyone felt listened to and acknowledged and heard in this particular process. Colleagues, paragraph 14 through 17 cover the Education Scotland comments in the space in Appendix 5, and indeed the Education Services response to that. Paragraph 15 outlines the response on all of those aspects. The first one referring to the primary school and early years, the supported learning centre in 2, and the early childhood centre in 3. So that covers the Education Scotland side of the report. Colleagues, despite its length, it was fairly easy to come to conclusions on the basis of the consultation report, and we offer you those conclusions amidst this covering report today. Colleagues, in paragraph 18, we would note there's overwhelming support for the proposals that were tabled in all 4 respects. Colleagues, the officer view, and please note that this is not solely an educational view. I'm entirely grateful to my colleagues in legal, in planning, in facilities and property management and economic growth and early years who have been right beside us through this entire process, and vibrant communities. So clearly a full officer view was that we brought this to you, and in 20 with the recommendation clearly to proceed to an LEIP Phase 3 bid. In 21, and having attended several seminars now with the Scottish Future Trust with my right-hand man here, Andrew, I would say that our chances of being successful in the bid are significantly strengthened if a council has taken the steps to undertake statutory or non-statutory consultation. So in bringing you this report, we clearly feel that it would strengthen our chances of the bid being progressed and accepted. Colleagues, clearly there is significant legal involvement in any of these processes, given that they are around about statutory consultation, and I'd like again to note my thanks to my legal colleagues in this space. So in 22, we're assured of full compliance, as you will see from the report, I hope, with the legal processes around statutory consultation. 23, again expressing my thanks to Cabinet colleagues here and elsewhere, that we took all of the aspects and indeed did scrutinise them from a statutory perspective, rather than split them up and perhaps treat them slightly differently due to the statutory and non-statutory nature. So in 24, clearly we note the decision of Cabinet around about this particular piece to go forward with that consultation. And clearly in 25, we need to refer again to my designation, if agreed by Cabinet today, to take the matter to Scottish Ministers. 26 notes the unique circumstances that we're in because of the deadline around about governance and scrutiny call-in, colleagues. So I hope that's clear in that space about that request, given the LEIP deadline, which is looming at the end of this month. Clearly in 27, colleagues, we refer to our statutory duty to provide education for children and young people and in the early years sector. And in 29, colleagues, I would just highlight the whole best value approach to these proposals, albeit that those will be highlighted further in potentially the next iteration of this, which would take the form of the LEIP bid if approved by Cabinet today. Colleagues, in moving to the financial aspects of this, again, I'd like to thank my colleague, Joe McLaughlin, and my colleagues in FPM for their guidance and support. Clearly, we have to go to our experts in the field for such matters. So in paragraph 30, indicative funding is around about the 32 million mark to cover the northwest of Kilmarnock, but we would note that any money secured through an LEIP phase 3 bid is via a revenue support grant, colleagues, at 50% of the cost. As you'll note from the report, in 32, the affordability cap is set at £48.7 million, and in 33, you will note that the same rules and regulations would apply in regards to cost controls were this project to progress. I think really positive to highlight in paragraph 34 the positivity around the bid and the consultation around about, you know, giving our young people in the ASN sector further opportunities and development to be on a campus, but also the integration of early years space as well, which I think would be a sector leading approach for us in East Ayrshire, and to my understanding does not exist anywhere else. So we would really hope that that would be taken as a really positive move to integrate young people with ASN onto a mainstream campus, whilst also having their own identity as a school. Colleagues, clearly at this stage there are no human resource issues because we haven't gone to the bids phase as yet, and clearly if approved then that would be coming back for further discussion and agreement at Cabinet. Clearly, colleagues, this project does carry risk, the consultation and the LEIP bid themselves carry risk, and in 36, clearly there are always risks inherent in such projects given that they are bid-based, and clearly, colleagues, any risks around about future project methodology were the bid to go ahead. In conclusion, colleagues, in policy and planning 38 through 41, we do see the project really consistent with the aspirations of the community plan and indeed our strategic direction as a council. And clearly the linkage through around about community benefits, I think, would shine through this particular project, given the location and indeed the great sense of community that we know exists in the northwest of Kilmarnock to help this land and happen where it's successful. Clearly, colleagues, and my colleague Karen in planning is sat opposite me here, clearly all of these matters have to be joined up, and I know it's always a concern when we see house building going on and other plans coming through, LDP, LDP2, etc. But again, I would like to highlight the fact that the bid has been considered by our colleagues in economic development and planning clearly to work alongside us in this project, and indeed in the future through any further capital programme investment to align with what the needs of any emerging new communities and house builds are. And in final nod, the net zero comments, colleagues, clearly we're not at the phase of having an agreed bid, but as you'll know from the Scottish Future Trust, it's very much a thrust on please use what we can rather than build new. That's not possible for a school like Willowbank Primary where that's to go ahead, but clearly the other areas that we're looking to use in the terms of the Onthank existing building and the Mount Carmel existing building clearly do chime in with that, you know, reuse and recycle in terms of those buildings and breathe new life into them rather than build from scratch. So colleagues, that concludes my covering report on the consultation, and I'll be happy to take any questions or commentary in this space. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Linda. I mean, I think this represents a significant investment in education in the North West and in special educational needs. Just a couple of questions I have. Just Linda, in terms of the Willowbank School, and I'm noting the comments from some of the parents and teachers about some of the facilities that are at the existing Willowbank School, like the hydrotherapy pool and some of the other resources, which you know we're absolutely proud of. Will they still have access to those resources?
Yes, thank you, Chair. That was actually a question that was raised through the virtual consultations and indeed in the written responses that came into us during the consultation. I think the idea is once we either hear or not hear around about the bid, and clearly I've highlighted the risks there, then we would want to work with the school to design a bespoke arrangement for them within what we have. You know, I've always got to add the caveat and within what we can do in this space, but the idea very much would be to produce a facility that was on par with the existing Willowbank facilities, such that there's not a disjoint between primary experience, but we might also be looking to see what's in the secondary in terms of a much more bespoke secondary experience as well. So very much to get into the space with the staff, Chair, when that time comes. If it comes, I hope it comes clearly, but you know, to get in the space and really hear what people want from a new Willowbank Primary School.
It's absolutely excellent. Good. And just I was going to make a comment just from our visit yesterday to the new Lone Head campus. Hopefully, you know, we can see what, you know, a new early years facility within the campus does for the long-term future. And I hope this, you know, in terms of what we're doing, proposing here for Mount Carmel, has the same effect and brings the role back up and, you know, and gets as good a, you know, the affinity that the people have with the Mount Carmel school. We can work on that and make sure we've got an absolute thriving school there as much as we saw yesterday. I think that's good. Okay, I'll just open up to anyone else who wants to comment. Any comments or questions? Maureen?
Thanks very much. Yes, I'm very happy to accept that we go forward with this bid at this time. Clearly, it is a positive move that we've got. Again, by the time we get to the stage that we see what retrofit actually means, we hope that we already have seen what has been achieved at St. Sophia's School. So that's a good and positive for us to look at. And again, hopefully we'll be the second in that process. So we will be able to learn some lessons from the first one that's done. So again, that's always a positive. I do have some concerns about the finance, as you would expect. And just again, is this actually sufficient? Because what we are proposing here is something that is really wide-ranging and exciting. But wide-ranging and exciting obviously always comes with a cost associated with it. And I do have to just highlight again that Hillhead within Kilmarnock North really does require to look at what the proposals are for that. I understand that's not in that bid, but I'm just highlighting that because that's something that we absolutely must not lose sight of. Equally, I have spoken to Head of Education and said I always have concerns when any papers come forward to us with restrictions in relation to governance and scrutiny, and I would ask that every effort is made in future that that doesn't happen in relation to this process, because I know the level of public interest in it. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks very much, Maureen. Yeah, I think there's in terms of Hillhead, absolutely. It's important that we have a commitment to Hillhead as well, and I think we referenced that in the paper. And again, referencing yesterday's visit, we saw what we can do with an old building, which is a loved building. I think the sandstone building at Hillhead's well loved, and I think we maybe in future, as there is expansion and as we see improvement in the school role at Hillhead and the performance of Hillhead, that we invest there as well as the opportunity arises. Eddie.
Thanks, Leader. I think the questions raised by yourself and Councillor Mackay are really important questions for us as a council. As we're aware, the medium-term financial plan will come forward to us, at the next council. Part of that has to be around what the capital programme is going forward, the affordability of the capital programme, the revenue implications of that, and that we as a council, you as elected members of the council, can have real transparency around these issues and make sure we prioritise in terms of that capital programme going forward. Clearly, this one is also dependent on us getting a significant resource from Scottish Government to support it. But again, within the consultation, and I know the question was asked, what is Plan B? And at that stage we were full focused on going for getting the investment for Scottish Government, but we've also within the consultation highlighted the need. So if we weren't to get that investment, we would again need to take a step back and say, how would we resource the necessary things, from the council's funding, and these are huge questions for us in terms of how we take forward the overall capital programme, and it's where this type of work ties in to our medium-term financial planning and indeed the revenue implications of our capital programme. So the questions are absolutely valid, and it's something that we need to bring back to you for members to be able to take forward.
Okay, that's helpful, Eddie. Thanks. Elaine.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Linda, and other heads of services for bringing this paper to us this morning. It is a very exciting time. It's also a very challenging time, but comes no surprise, no shock to MD. I'm very supportive of this, both from a portfolio and from Ward 2 representation, and hopefully the bid will be successful, and hopefully it will open the opportunity to extend to other primary schools in the north of the local authority. We had an excellent visit yesterday to Lonehead Primary, but sometimes we get caught up in what the buildings are and the constructions and the budgets, but it's really the things that happen in the space and the difference it makes to those children's lives. So 100% behind this bid. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elaine. And I think in terms of Maureen's point about the governance and scrutiny, I think that's a point we all made. We'll make sure and reflect and make sure that governance and scrutiny have full sight of this when we can. Absolutely. Okay. Was it? Oh, John McFadden. John.
Yes, I'd just like to say I'm fully supportive of the bid. And I think it's fantastic the way we've used so much forward thinking and foresight to put the plan together. I'd like to thank Linda and everyone involved, for all the work they've done in doing this, and I really hope the bid is successful. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Okay, anyone else? No. Okay, can we go to recommendations? Page 3, can we agree the recommendations?
Agreed.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, that concludes the education items on Cabinet today. And just thank you for your attendance, and give you a minute if you want to leave and for those online as well. Okay, just give you a minute to your papers, etc.
Thank you.
Okay, now going to item 3, and that's the place plans for Auchinleck and Darvel and Priestland. Karen.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. The purpose of this report is to present the proposed place plans for Auchinleck and Darvel and Priestland, which will, in due course, subject to approval, become supplementary guidance to the 2017 Local Development Plan. Recommendations are set out in paragraph 2 and include seeking approval for the place plans to be released for public consultation. Back at the adoption of LDP1, the intention was and remains to prepare place plans for all settlements across East Ayrshire. However, the production of these plans is community-led and it depends on community willingness and it can only progress subject to this. The place plans will help guide future development and assist the council and local communities in future funding bids and in targeting resources as they indicate the aspirations of the community and they ground these in planning policy. The programme for producing place plans has been closely associated with the production and updating of the community-led action plans where these exist, and my team are working really closely with vibrant communities to engage the communities to produce the place plans. There's a procedure we follow to produce the place plans, and that's set out in paragraph 7, and paragraph 8 sets out how the way we work jointly with vibrant communities to undertake community engagement to help realise a spatial interpretation of the community's action plan. Looking then at each plan in turn, paragraph 10 sets out the community ambitions for Auchinleck, and they include developing a heritage trail to promote the diverse industrial history of the village and enhancing the local attractions. There's also an ambition to develop potential gap sites as community spaces. Paragraph 11 then sets out the community ambitions for Darvel and Priestland. It focuses on key buildings and development sites in the town which the group feel have an adverse impact on amenity. There's also an ambition to develop sustainable regeneration projects for the town and develop tourism based on the extensive assets in terms of cycling and walking routes in the surrounding area and the town's role as an established music venue through Darvel Music Festival. Paragraphs 13 to 15 set out the pre-cabinet consultation which has taken place in order to get us to today with Darvel Community Council and DART and Auchinleck Steering Group. Should Cabinet approve this consultation, we will go out for 6 weeks and we'll return to Cabinet in due course with the results of this and any comments that we receive on the place plans and then consider how we might take them into account. Paragraphs 20 to 27 set out a range of implications and the report concludes with the recommendations that we go out for formal consultation. And I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. It was just a wee comment just about the general process. I think this is great. We've seen, with previous place plans, that it's great to see that democracy coming in and local people being able to influence their communities in terms of the physical plan. And we see 2 great examples, in my opinion, today. But I just worry, it's a great way of getting other resources, external funding, and giving them a clear direction and where we want to go. And it just with other communities, it does take a tremendous resource. You'll know all that too well, Karen. And I just worry that we need to get that, particularly just because it's my area, but for the Kilmarnock area. I think that's what we really need to give that a bit of attention, and I think that's something we should maybe look at bringing that early, and other communities, so that we get full coverage where we can right across East Ayrshire, because it is an advantage. But I mean, it's only as good as the participation and the willingness of local people to become involved. But I think that it's an excellent way to plan our communities. But I know it takes a bit of effort to produce these, and I welcome them just now. But I'll leave it open for people to talk in the specifics here. But I was just talking about the generalities. Karen.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, we have worked up quite a lot in terms of Kilmarnock, and we have a place plan in draft form ready to bring you, but we want to bring that as part of the wider Kilmarnock work that we're looking at. So we hope to bring that up to you before Christmas time. In terms of other communities, we've got a sort of itinerary of how we hope to work through them, and there's quite a number on the go at the moment. So hopefully there will be more feeding through in the next few months.
No, that's really good news. David?
Now, just in the point about the investment, Chair, it was just obviously these place plans provide adequate support to communities to look for external investment, and obviously the communities will, you know, in particular use as an example Auchinleck. I mean, in their work with the 9cc, they'll be able to use that as, you know, as a foundation to help, you know, look at investment through the wind farm developments as that money starts to roll in. So it does give a real opportunity. We've done a similar exercise just in the final progress work at the Doon Valley, and we see these as being real foundations for allowing communities to get external funding and development in their area.
That's absolutely good. I mean, I've heard from all members, you know, that there's a willingness there. You want to see any kind of external investment be long term, you know, and not just short term fixes, long term, to really bring sustainable improvement to our communities. And I think that's something that we're looking at. And I know that's something that Drew's been looking at with localities on. Drew, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Douglas. Just on top of what David says there, the other day there, I just managed to get my first glimpse of the Doon Valley Master Plan, and just what David's saying there, I know that the good consultation it was going through all the community, and I can see just what the architects have come up with. They've listened to the community, and I think that will be the same right through East Ayrshire. Yeah, we will listen to the communities, and the communities will get what they're asking for. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, do you have any kind of comments in the specifics of Auchinleck and Darvel, or any other points that we're just going over there? I think it's seen a lot of progress in both these communities, and this will just only assist it. So, yep. So look forward to hearing the responses from the consultation exercise that we're going through. So, good. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, can we just go back to the recommendations on page 92 and agree those recommendations there?
Agreed.
Okay, I think that concludes the Cabinet for today, and just thank you all for your attendance.